As you just said, I think we've covered an awful lot of stuff. Hopefully, your listeners will have enjoyed the diversity. Our listeners will have enjoyed the diversity of it. And I guess we'd like to know, wouldn't we, if people want more of this stuff.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to episode 89 of Sharp Podcast, the personal growth podcast from SON Development, where we help you get better at the things you have to do so you can spend more time doing the things you want to do. Now, this episode is like a bit of a nostalgic trip back in time because for the first time in about 4 years, I think it is, Lisa and I have recorded a conversation at the kitchen table. And because it's been so long, we've really made up for it. It's a very long chat. So we've actually decided to split this into 2 episodes. We're launching one this week, and don't worry, you only have to wait a week for the next one to come out. But in this episode, in this half of the conversation, we talk about planning and how planning can work in your personal life. We talk about our weekly planner and why people think we're weird. We talk about the weekly questions we ask each other, which help our relationship, and how for the second time ever in our life, I've managed to drag Lisa kicking and screaming into doing a yearly vision. Spoiler alert. She very quickly realised that it's actually very helpful. We talk about how we make progress on those things. One of those areas is about personal branding and what personal branding looks like these days on platforms like LinkedIn. We talk about self-development and the importance of owning your own self-development. Don't wait for your company to do it for you. We cover imposter syndrome and Lisa's techniques for overcoming it, the importance of being transparent and honest in your network, and we end starting to explore Lisa's secrets about authentic leadership. You join us as I've turned the fridge off and some of the other noisy things in the kitchen. It is still a bit echoey for my liking, but I think it's all right. Here we go. So here we are at the kitchen table.
Oh, I haven't done this for a while, have we?
It's been a long time. In fact, let's just tell the listener why we're here at the kitchen table. Because we reposted, at the time of recording, I reposted an episode from 2018 that was about public speaking. It's very echoey at the kitchen table. I'd forgotten how echoey it was. I'm sorry for your ears, dear listener. I know you're used to a higher standard than this. But it's nostalgic, isn't it, to record at the kitchen table? Anyway, so we put an episode out that was about public speaking. And in that episode, you and I had a conversation and you were in Dubai.
My goodness.
And
how long ago was that?
6 years ago.
Jesus.
So then I thought, well, we haven't done a kitchen table thing for a while.
Yeah.
Let's have a look and see when the last kitchen table thing we did was.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest with you, I haven't got time to listen to every single episode, despite how good they are.
I thought you knew them off by heart.
Well, yeah, I know them quite well. I think 2020, episode 60, was the last time we did like a proper at the kitchen table. And that was actually about, it was COVID. And we were talking about working from home and the challenges of home
Doesn't
office.
It feel like a lifetime ago?
It does, doesn't it? It's just coming up for 4 years now.
Seriously.
And it does feel like about a decade
or
more.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talked about online learning, how people can, if you're in furlough, you can go and learn stuff.
I genuinely don't remember that one.
Don't you?
No, I'm going to need to listen to it because that one that you shared out last week, last week, it was quite good, wasn't it?
Don't sound surprised. They are good.
Well, number one, it was quite good.
No, it wasn't quite good.
It was very good.
Okay.
It was really early in the morning when you were playing it, and I could hear it coming out of your office when I was getting ready for work. Yeah. And I had to keep stopping, actually, because it was quite compelling listening.
Stop doing the surprised. Dear listeners, revelation, the podcast is a compelling listen. I work really hard to make it good.
But also,
Bloody hell. That... Can you imagine? It's actually what?
That time in our world, I'd kind of forgotten what it was like.
Yeah.
Because every week I was somewhere different, wasn't I?
Well, that was 6 years ago. It was weird to listen to. And then 2 years after that, there was the sort of at the table COVID, which feels like a long time ago. So we thought we'd do another kitchen table. And yes, it will mainly be us rambling. But what we thought might be useful, and we actually do want this to be of some interest to the listener, as well as, oh, blimey, it's quite good, we thought we'd talk about planning and kind of planning in terms of personal life, because lots of stuff that's out, is around planning your work life. But we've learned, haven't we, that planning your personal life, whilst at first felt like that's a bit of a worky thing to do, has actually made a huge difference. And when we did the previous kitchen tables, we'd talked about our weekly planner, hadn't we? Which we're still doing.
And I have mentioned this a few times to people at work, Steve, and they think that we're weird.
Yeah. Well,
but it really works for us, doesn't it? Like, genuinely, people and I say a bit tongue in cheek that we have our weekly meeting on a Sunday, but we do, don't we?
We do. This is it today. We're just recording it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's try not to shout so much at each other.
Why do you think that? Why do you think it works? From your perspective, why do you think doing that weekly
Because
plan
our
works?
lives are bloody busy.
Yeah.
So, if you look at just last week in isolation, but it's a fairly typical week, isn't it? I'm at home Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm away.
Yeah.
Come home Thursday, you're out.
Yeah.
So you came home and we literally just got ready and went to bed.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what happened Friday. Friday's
you got up
a blur.
at 3:00 and took Charlie to the airport.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I got up at 3:00 in the morning to take Charlie to the airport. And then, before you know it, it's the weekend and we've spent so little time together. We need to have that dedicated, I'm so sorry, I touched the microphone. That dedicated piece of time to plan for the last week, but also just to centre ourselves in the moment about, are we okay?
Yeah.
Because we are literally ships in the night. So if we don't have that dedicated time, we don't really have any level of conversation with any depth to it because we're just so busy doing other stuff.
And like the weekly review I keep banging on about in the course, there's two parts to it. So there's the
Have you got a course, Steve?
Yes. I might tell you about that later if you're lucky. There's the sort of admin bit around, who's cooking, where are we? Because, I was out 4 times last week at various points of the day, 2 networking things, 2 client things. And then a lot of my work when I'm working from home is I'm at a screen, I'm recording or I'm editing and so on. So there's lots to be done. So there's the kind of the admin bit around who's where, what's for dinner, who's cooking it, where is it, all that kind of stuff. Then there's the how are we check-in. And then there's those series of questions around, what have I done last week to make you happy? What have I done last week that's made you unhappy? What can I do differently? And sometimes our answers to those are, quite nothing.
Yeah. It's quick, isn't it?
Yeah. And then other times it's like, well, actually, and I think one of the reasons why it works...
Actually, Steve, you've been a bit of a knob.
We're not going to ask those questions on the podcast. But one of the things we find sometimes is that they unlock something that happened on Monday that you've forgotten about. That's small, it's low level.
Yeah.
But of course, dealing with it while it's low level is absolutely the best way, because if it becomes a great big problem, then it's much harder to undo. So that regular just temperature check.
Yeah. It's more about a catalyst and initiating conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, so that little stuff doesn't become much bigger stuff, because often those things will happen or come about when we're off out the door or someone's going away for 2 days. And it's really difficult to deal with that stuff when you're not physically together, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. If you don't talk about it, it just sits at the back of your head and then it happens again. And I think
it festers.
Well, and I think it's really important to make sure that we make it clear that this is not just about what's gone wrong. It's also about celebrating what's made you feel good. What have we done this week that's added value, made us feel good? Because again, if we don't stop and remind ourselves what those things are, it can start to feel a bit like this review process is a bit of a drudge and a bit of a tick box, and we're only talking about bad stuff and so on. So, and listen, we're not setting ourselves up as some kind of bloody gurus or that we think we're in a position to lecture people on this stuff, because we get so much wrong, and it's by...
Well, you do.
You get so much wrong that it's by... and I say this about the planning thing, I'm not naturally a good planner. I'm not automatically a good planner.
You see, I do not believe you when you say that.
But I have to have a system in place to compensate for the fact that I'm not. What I am good at is making sure that I apply my system. And then it appears from the outside that I'm just like, yeah, hi, I just like rock up on time and everything's cool and I'm in the right place at the right time. And that's the effect of it. The effect of our weekly conversation is our relationship is good. The effect of our weekly planning is that, we're not running around breaking our neck to get home to cook dinner because we didn't realise the other person wasn't there, or, we have forgotten about Charlie who sat on the doorstep. I mean, he's 19. He's not 6 anymore. But
he'd struggle to get through the windows.
Yeah, he would struggle to get through the windows. But the point is that it's working hard at the small stuff that makes the big stuff easier to do. That's kind of why we think it might be useful to share this. And we've talked about this weekly planner a lot before. But what we've done this year, for only the second time ever, is we've done a vision planner for the year. And that's actually what we want to talk about here. Now, listen, listener, before you switch off and go, right, okay, we're at the Steve and Lisa board meeting.
Honestly, how hard do you have to work for me to do this stuff? Because
very hard.
Yeah. Naturally is not my thing, is it?
But that's a really important point. If it's naturally not your thing and we have to work hard at it, why do we do it?
Well, when you said that we were going to do this, I think the first time I kind of didn't know what to expect. The second time I did, didn't I? So I really did roll my eyes.
Yeah, because we did it, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
We did it once when we were in Denmead.
And was it this year or last year when we'd moved and we found the kind of the printout of what we'd... And there was so much stuff in there that we ticked off, didn't we?
Gosh,
we'd kind of...
I've actually done it.
We're like, oh my God, and our 5-year plan. So anyway, I think I do find it more of a challenge than you do, and I do recognise that you do the bulk of the heavy lifting to get us where we need to get to with it. But it's really worked for me this year. It's given me a real determination and sense of purpose with a couple of really big things that I want to achieve this year. Yeah, I liked it, Steve.
If we might just share a bit about kind of how we did it. So basically we sat down at the start of the year and we grouped some areas together. So work stuff, family stuff, financial stuff, downtime, hobbies, interests, that kind of thing. Hobbies and relationships. Hobbies. Yeah, I don't like the word hobby, doesn't it?
Yeah, let's not say that. Makes you sound like a right didn't
hobby. Because what's really, really important is this is absolutely not about planning work stuff. That's not what it is. It's about planning the things that naturally tend to slide and you tend to not do when you're busy because you're busy. We were talking before we started recording about one of the things we've made a commitment to do is to make sure that we spend some time making time for our relationships, not you and me, but our relationships outside of work, outside of family. But actually, have we got dedicated time set aside to make sure that we can give those relationships time? Because if you don't plan to do it, they're just, I can't come to dinner this week because we're too busy. We can't do it next week because I'm away and all that kind of stuff and so on. So,
well, we're trying to book those things in advance, aren't we? Kind of in a lot of those categories, just trying to make sure that once a quarter we've got something from each of those categories happening. And that's really creating quite a good energy for me because I've always got something to look forward to.
Yeah.
There's always something on your countdown on your phone for us, which I quite like. But it is making sure that we're filling all of those buckets rather than just the work stuff, which can really take over, can't it? It can just feel so overwhelming and all-encompassing, and actually that's not good for your soul, is it?
And one example of that is our weekend walks. So we've quite regularly this year been doing a lot of making sure that every weekend, every other weekend, we get out, we go somewhere we haven't been before, and we do a bit of a walk. Not just because of the exercise bit, although that is good, but just because we're together somewhere different, seeing something different, getting some fresh air. And you say the same thing every time, don't you? Before we go out, what do you say?
Oh, not sure I can be asked.
And when we come back...
Oh, that was good. I'm glad you made me do that. But primarily because you do allow me now to find walks that involve a pub at the end.
Yes.
And I do quite like that.
Yeah, and a coffee and cake.
Well, yeah.
For sure. So that's the end of the podcast.
Yes, everyone do that.
Sorry to interrupt your listening, but I just wanted to jump in with a quick message. If you've listened to Sharp Podcast for a few years, you might be wondering why we've been mentioning SON development and what that's all about. Are they a sponsor? Is it a house building company? Well, no. You see, we've been making Sharp Podcast since 2017, and it's always been our aim to give you free resource that helps you get better at the things that matter to you, and we're not planning to change that. But SON Development is the training company that I founded in 2021 to help organisations, teams and individuals improve performance and make a real difference to their working lives. We run workshops, we do consultation, and we provide digital resource about leadership, coaching, sales, customer service, planning and prioritisation, and loads more stuff. So if you're a business or a team leader and you're frustrated that your training isn't making a real difference, give us a shout. You can find out more about what we do at sondevelopment.com, and of course there's a link in the show notes. But if you prefer to get your development free of charge with Sharp Podcast, would you do us a favour and just make a quick note now to share this episode or any that you really like with your friends, family, colleagues, anyone who you think it could help. We'd really appreciate it. End of interruption, back to the episode. So we sat down at the start of the year, we kind of grouped these areas together, and then we set ourselves some objectives, didn't we? Like actual proper objectives. How are we going to measure whether this thing is working well or not? So an easy one for me is the work one. So with the work one, I can say, right, I've got X number of clients generating Y amount of revenue. That's an easy thing to measure. How you achieve it, that's the thing you then have to go and put the effort in. But setting out some kind of measurable objective. Things like interests and so on, they're a bit harder to measure because you can't measure whether you've done fly fishing 4 times a week.
Number of times that you're dedicating to doing that stuff, isn't it? So it's kind of, as I just said, it's once a quarter. We're going to, for me, I'm doing something around my self-development once a quarter, or doing something with my girlfriends once a quarter. So it's an amount of time thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's that sort of regularity. Is it happening weekly? Is this happening monthly or whatever?
Yeah.
And I mean, we started off talking about our busy lives, and life is different to how it was 3 or 4 years ago. I've been running my own business now, coming up for 3 years. We've been in this house for 3 years. Yeah. You've been doing your job for
3.5 years. Yeah. So that's different from when we were last at the kitchen table.
Yeah. What do you do?
I'm a divisional director for a retail business.
Okay. Thanks for telling me that, because I just thought you just went out of the house and came back. And
Occasionally once a week or something, The
kids are older, they're off working or at uni or whatever and so on. So we don't have that sort of hands-on, got to take the kids everywhere each weekend.
That's definitely different,
all that kind of stuff. I'm not doing Portsmouth to Essex and back twice a weekend every fortnight. No. That's a bit different.
Yeah, that... How long ago since, 2 years probably, is it?
Yeah, because I was doing it for 10 years. So,
wow.
So 2 years ago. So, but when we kind of pulled this planner together with these areas, it is naturally fallen because we're recording this literally coming to the end of March. So in a business environment, you might each quarter review your progress.
It's a quarterly business
review. And we, in fact, I've got it loosely written up on the whiteboard, haven't I, in the office? And we looked at it the other day actually and said, "Oh yeah, we've done that. We're doing that. We're doing that." And you don't have to put it on a flipping spreadsheet, or you don't need pie charts. It doesn't have to be a PowerPoint
Steve,
presentation.
You love all that.
No.
You love it.
No, I used to, but I don't anymore. What I like actually is in my scrawly handwriting up on the board, just go, that feels good. That feels like that's going well. I have got the clients that I wanted to have. I have got the online course. Have I mentioned I've got an online course?
Really?
I am doing the audio and video stuff that I wanted to do. So you don't have to put a numerical target and a measure, but if you do, then at least you could be specific as to whether you're achieving it or not. But taking a step back and just going, that actually feels like we're making progress in that area. And that's some of the stuff with the kids, haven't we? We've set objectives for, where.
Don't tell them.
Yeah, I know. We've set objectives for how can we support uni progress. So what is it we need to do? So I'm rambling a bit. So Eve is at university and she's studying social science and she's loving it and she's really good at it. And it doesn't take a huge amount of support from us. But in order for Eve to get her degree and to do what she wants to do and so on, we've taken a step back and said, okay, well, what part do we play in supporting that? And, that's about seeing her regularly, checking in. I've been doing some sort of, accommodation work from shelving to rooms and all. And it's kind of the stuff you would instinctively do as a parent, but so I'll give you an example. There have been some challenges in her accommodation. I have a reminder that comes up every 2 weeks that just reminds me, just check in on how that's going. Most weeks, as soon as a reminder comes up, I delete it because I know it's not a problem. But again, it's just that sort of, I've not visited that for a few weeks. How's that thing going? Just to kind of check back in again and those sorts of things. So So we've got the work one, and for you, we're not going to talk about you in your job, but kind of loosely linked to work. One of the areas was for you defining your brand. Well, that's a bit of a wanky word.
It is a bit of a wanky word, but
people know what we mean when we say it.
Yeah, and I think kind of, as I said, 3.5 years into my job, really comfortable with what I'm doing. I think it was then about defining me and just making sure that my job or my job title wasn't defining me, but actually I was defining it. Yeah. And so I think, and you gave me a real kick up the arse around this, and it's given me some food for thought about the things that I can do, the people I can engage with, what my network looks like in order to make sure that my brand is reflective of me as a person, as an individual, but also as a leader and within my marketplace, my kind of circle of influence. So, and I have to say it's giving me a really good, a good vibe. It's given me some kind of stuff to really think about rather than just the day by day stuff that you do in your work. And I think I'm getting some really good feedback. Other people are enjoying it as well. Some of the kind of articles and bits and pieces that I'm pulling together. So, that was a clear objective that we had as part of that vision planning, and also the self-development stuff, which I'm kind of have been as well, linking in with some social stuff. So it's kind of becoming quite holistic how I'm getting to it.
And my view on this self-development stuff, we've been doing Sharp Podcast since 2017 because I feel very strongly that it's not a company's responsibility to provide all the self-development for the employees, the people, the colleagues. As individuals, dear listener, and I say individuals, I know it's only just you, one person listening to this, but, you do have a responsibility for your own self-development. You have a responsibility to decide what is it that you want to be that's better about you today compared to yesterday, and how are you going to make that happen? Yeah. It's almost a byproduct that you'll get better at your job because you're
But that's
you're better
not the purpose of doing
Absolutely.
it. It's about you yourself.
Yes.
And I think there's no reason nowadays with online courses. I'll keep saying it. Yeah. Steve. Online courses.
Oh, I've got an online course.
Really?
Yeah.
Who'd have thought? But all of that kind of resource that's out there, it's so accessible and predominantly free.
Yes.
Yeah, I know your course isn't. I'm going to just say that. But there is a lot of free.
Yeah. And I think this is a bit of a passion of mine, but the formal training that's being provided to organisations, that organisations feel that is their responsibility. So let's take, I don't know, teamwork, for example. So teamwork as a subject. Organisations may provide that training, and let's be honest, they provide it because they want people to get better at working as a team.
Oh, they're trying to solve a problem.
Exactly, yeah. There is some sort of output, there is some sort of productivity or some sort of operational thing they want to be better as a result of that, and they want people to be better at what they do. In some companies, there may be a genuinely altruistic, they want people to feel good about being in the company, and that does exist out there. At the other extreme, it's just about driving revenue and they don't really care how people think, and then everyone else is on a spectrum somewhere in between. And I think that the challenge is the formal training that's out there that our listeners may benefit from the organisation will always have the organisation's agenda as part of why that's happening. Of course, because the organisation is providing it.
Yeah.
So if a company is providing teamwork training, then there's a reason why that company wants that to happen. Nothing wrong with that. And of course, people will benefit from it. But there will be elements of being part of a team that you also can find out about for yourself that will help you in your world, in your life, that won't be spoon-fed to you by your companies.
Yeah, but also when you're sat in a room full of people and you're being developed with a certain area, everyone in that room is going to be at a different standstill space. So everyone's going to have a different level of understanding, a different level of capability, and a different starting point. So everything's going to land and resonate differently for every person, and therefore the person facilitating has to accommodate that. Whereas if you're focusing on an area for yourself, you're finding the material at your starting point, at your capacity level, and so it's tailored, isn't it?
Yeah.
And often when you're in that situation, it feels easier, it lands better. You're able to see the results much clearer. So there are lots of benefits, aren't there, to doing that stuff for yourself by yourself.
The challenge is that A, you've got to invest some time in finding the stuff that's good.
Yeah.
And B, sometimes you may have to invest financially to get the really good stuff. Because let's be honest, the stuff that's out there for free, there's a lot of it. Yeah. But the reason it's free is because usually someone is providing it free of charge so that hopefully you'll be interested enough to then purchase, and I'm hands up.
It's quite generic, but that's how the model works. That's how it works.
So you can't solve all your problems just by consuming free stuff. But the point is, and this is coming back to your kind of branding thing, we said, why don't we look at self-development and kind of your brand and treat that as an area to work on? Once we'd set the ball rolling, you went off and did all sorts of stuff. And there was, we had a look at LinkedIn profiles, didn't we? We had a look at...
thanks for my new headshot. I'm loving that.
You're very welcome. But also, what is the best practice in terms of how you set up your... that line underneath your picture that says what you do. Yeah. I'm sure it's got a proper name. What's a good format to put articles in to get people's attention? So there was a bit of work in understanding what the best practice is. But once you've established that, then it's absolutely about you driving it. The other thing you said earlier, which is interesting, is you talked about that affecting your self-esteem and the link between that sort of activity and how you feel about yourself as a wider person instead of just your work person.
And this is something I've been working on for kind of 5-6 years. Once I'd really identified that this thing called imposter syndrome was having an impact on my life as a whole, not just my professional life, but the whole of my world. And that kind of internal voice that really talks about your level of worthiness, and it's rubbish, and it is something that we're all indoctrinated with a little bit at various different levels. So I was really lucky enough maybe 3 years ago to have a business coach, a personal coach through my work, who really supported in kind of unlocking why it was there and how I could build my resilience and internal voice to support with getting better at what I did, but feeling better about what I was doing. And, I'm by no means a finished article, and I still have that voice niggling away sometimes. But I think I've got some really great coping mechanisms that I've learned as part of that journey to kind of support that more stable baseline and growth potential. And I think doing stuff for myself that isn't just related to work, that's just about me as an individual, supports and helps me feeling better and doing better at work and in my personal stuff. So, I want to be the best partner I can to you. I want to be the best mum to our kids. I want to, just be great and excel at whatever I do for other people as well as myself. So all of that kind of links in together, I think.
Mm-hmm. You talked about coping mechanisms. So what are the sorts of things that are built into that anti-imposter syndrome technique?
So I think there's a number of things. So, keeping things small, so not catastrophizing.
Yeah.
And my lovely coach talked to me about the scale of awfulness and just making sure that things stay in perspective.
Yeah.
And I do it subconsciously now, so that actually I'm keeping things small and I'm keeping them relative to what is going on in the world around me.
Yeah.
And that in itself just helps you to very quickly go through a process of dismissing some of the things that might have impacted how you were feeling about the world around you before. And I think that's probably the one that's had the biggest impact. And also just recognizing, and you taught me a bit of this around, the spotlight impact and all the rest of it. People aren't really looking at you.
No.
People really don't think too much about what you look like, what you say. It is just people looking at you and thinking, "Cool, she's pretty good," or, "She looks good today," and all of that stuff is really held up and bolstered by having a great network around you. So I'm really lucky at work now, and I'll be honest, it took me a while. I'm really lucky now that I've got a great network of like-minded people around me at work who really support and help with all of that, because we can be transparent and honest with each other.
So I'm really sorry to leave you hanging there, but I did say at the start, this is a long conversation, and that's why we split it into two parts. If you're listening to this on the day we've launched it, you've only got 1 week to wait. Part 2 will come out next week in episode 90. And in the episode, we'll pick up on Lisa's authentic leadership tips, how you can be friends with people and get great results. There doesn't need to be a conflict between those things. Why there are better alternatives to command and control, the peril of smelling your own farts, and lots of other stuff. If you're not already subscribed to us, to make sure you get that fresh in your inbox next week, subscribe. In the show notes, we'll put the links, and also in the show notes, there'll be links to our LinkedIn profiles and some of our social media networks, because the idea of this conversation is we want to provoke some dialogue with you and start to hear from you about what you think about these things and get into a bit of conversation. All that info will be in the show notes. So watch out next week. It's actually a bank holiday Monday that part 2 launches, episode 90. See you then.
Great stuff.
Is that you breathing?
No.
Yes, could you stop breathing, please? If you wouldn't mind stop breathing when you're not talking, that'd be fantastic.
#love is.